Okay, so uh, this is the few changes that I've brought into the web page that we designed yesterday. So basically what I have done is I have changed the images. Uh, Previously we had the same image all over, the same camera image we had for all the objects. So this time I have changed it, and uh, I have put the rest of the images in there. And I have given a broiler text for the about page, which is basically lorem ipsum, that's used for placeholder. You can put something else there. It's just to fill in the place and show that something goes here. Uh, that's basically all the difference there is, I believe. And okay, so yesterday, one of the students brought a doubt to me, and it was that when you are using Internet Explorer, or sorry, Edge, I think, uh, the images and the videos were not showing. So the problem was that I had told you to put a backslash in front of the SRC in the first part. This is not really required uh, because Chrome is much more lenient than other uh, web browsers. So even if you put a slash in the first place, then it will still work. But uh, for it to work in other web browsers, you don't need it. Without it, you can still get all the images. And in some web browsers which are strict with HTML rules, you will have to remove the backslash. So keep that in mind. Uh, Next is, okay, I think that's all with the HTML part. And I hope that all of you had seen the video that I had posted in the WhatsApp group about the different how we resolved the get and post issue. Basically, it was that HTML is not really capable of taking in the post method. So it has to be PHP. In our case, the action.html in the form went to the action went to action.html. So the post method is not really working in this scenario because it is going to an HTML page itself, and HTML is not capable of handling post method. So it is only capable of handling get method. That is the reason why you got error 405. So basically, this is where we stopped yesterday. So let's begin with basics of CSS and SCSS. So how do we create a CSS file? Let's start with that. For creating a CSS file, open your Visual Studio Code, and in that create a new folder named CSS. This is for best practices because you don't really have to create a CSS folder, but to keep your code organized, it's better that you create a folder for CSS separately and use the directory to link it in your HTML code. So create a CSS folder and then create a CSS file. Name it anything you want, .css. So I have given it main, which is usually what you give for CSS file. So CSS.css is how you create the CSS file. And then there is SCSS. So how you create that is similar, main.scss. So before we go any forward with this, let's look at the differences. So we will get on to what CSS is a bit later. Let's just see the differences between CSS and SCSS. So SCSS, or how it is also called as SAS, that is SASS. It is syntactically awesome style sheet, while CSS is cascading style sheet. So file extension is different. One is CSS, one is SCSS. So why it is actually called as SAS. When you're calling it, it is called SAS. But remember about the SCSS part, because the file extension is not SAS. The file extension is SCSS. The full expansion would be like syntactically awesome cascading style sheet, but because it's a mouthful, it's called SAS. And you can create variables in SAS. You can the classes and IDs can be nested. That is class within a class within a class. I will talk about classes and IDs a bit when we talk about CSS, and it has basically all the other features of CSS. So there is only one drawback for using SCSS, and that is that you have to compile SCSS like you would compile a C program to get a CSS file. So what happens is you write a SCSS file. I'll call it SAS from now on. So keep in mind about the SCSS file extension. So in the SAS file, what you do is you write everything according to the syntax, and then you compile the SAS file. When you compile the SAS file, it will generate a CSS file. So CSS can be very tricky because even if you predict what it is going to output, the output may not be exactly what you are looking for. So there might be differences. You have to experiment with it a lot. Even if you know CSS pretty well, you will have to experiment with CSS to get things exactly as you want it. And uh, SCSS makes it a little bit more simpler. Now let's get on with what CSS is. So CSS is cascading style sheets, as we saw. It has its syntax consists of property value pairs. So you will give a property and then you will give a value. You will give a property, and corresponding to that property, you will give it a value, and then followed by a semicolon, which will end that particular property. Then you can the property value is used to describe a class ID or HTML tag. We'll go into that. There are examples as well. So classes can be reused as many times as necessary. So this is the difference between classes, IDs, and HTML tag we have already covered in the last class. So classes can be reused as many times as you need it. ID can be only used once, but actually you can use ID multiple times. But the problem is that ID has much more functionality than CSS itself, because ID can be used with JavaScript as well. And when we are taking the class JavaScript, I will explain a lot more of why what is the problem if you repeat an ID. So any element in HTML, you should only give one ID. The ID name should be unique. That is a must. You should only use it once. So that is the difference between classes and ID. And HTML tag is like every instance. For example, in this case, this is an HTML tag. This is the div tag. It is used to divide it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that as well. In this file, we had simply put all the elements in this text editor just like that in the index.html. So what I also did is I isolated all of them with a div tag. The header, that is the what is going to be our nav bar, I have put it inside a div tag. What is going to be our gallery of sorts is put in another div tag. Our about tab, about page, is completely inside a div tag, and our contact page is completely inside a div tag. So I have separated that with a div tag. What div tag does is it basically divides the page, just like putting an invisible line there. You won't see the difference, but it's just to keep the code a bit more organized, so that uh, when you want to search, you can just minimize this and you can search everything else. So stuff like that. So that's the use of div tag, in case you're curious. So div tag is a HTML tag. Then there is a class name. This is a attribute of in the HTML tag. So you have given the class attribute, and then you have given a class name. So if now what happens is whatever properties are written inside the class name is applied to that particular tag. So and this is similarly ID. You have one ID and you have one ID name. So you can just simply give a property in ID name, and that property will be applied to everything that has the ID name. So why you should use class and ID instead of using HTML tag is also very important. So what happens is, let's say that I have used a div tag and I have given properties and values. Uh, let's just say that I have given property value pair for div tag. So what happens is, in this example code that I have written, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 div tags. So what happens is every single div tag is affected by the code that I am writing under this. So when you write use HTML tag for styling, you should keep it in mind that it will affect the entire div tag within the entire page that you have. So this is how the syntax goes. Oh, sorry. This is how the syntax goes. We have div tag. This is called a selector, and this is the property. This is the value. The property and the value may change. It's depending on what the property or the value you have to use. And yesterday there were doubts about what you have to use to remove the bullet points of uh, this, what was it, unordered list. So what you will do is basically ul list style type colon, and you will give a value. You can put none. If you put none, then all the bullet points disappear and you will have no bullet points to worry about. And you can put square, then all the bullet points will be square. You can put circle. By default, it is already circle, so there is no point to it. And there are other values, much less important values that you can give. Diamond is also an example. You can use those and you can change the bullet points. So that is class ID and HTML tag. So how do we write class HD, the class ID and the HTML tag? So where is my, yeah. So classes are denoted with a dot. ID is denoted with hash. And if it is neither dot or hash, then it denotes an entire HTML tag. So you need to have the tag inside the HTML file. Only then it will register. So let's look at some yeah, CSS. Another more important stuff. CSS is basically of three types. There is inline CSS, there is internal CSS, and there is external CSS. So let's look at the difference between all of them. Inline CSS is like you give a property in to the HTML tag, attribute to the HTML tag, and that attribute consists is style. So let's take a look at that. What we need is let's say UL. Okay, we will try the list style type. So this is supposed to be a nav bar, right? So in nav bar, you have the letters without the bullet points. So let's just remove the bullet points. We'll give style is equal to list style type, and we'll give none. When you save that, you can see that the bullet points have disappeared. You can also give square, and it will become square. I think diamond still works. I think diamond has been removed. So there were previously many uh, symmetrical shapes that were supported, but it is not working anymore. I don't know why. And so that's how you remove the bullet points. You usually don't require to make it square or drops, something like that. Uh, you can put a URL in a bracket and then give it a location. If you do that, then it will also work, but you have to take care in mind that the uh, image that you are giving it as a URL should be small enough that it can be shown as a bullet point. So it is pretty hit or miss. Your image sometimes might work, might not work. So let's go with none here. So this is the inline side. You are giving the CSS code inside the tag itself. So that is why it's called inline CSS. Next is internal CSS. And what you do is you give a style tag, and inside that style tag, you will give the regular CSS properties. So let's see how that works. What we'll do is let's go to Google Fonts. And from Google Fonts, we will take a font. As I previously mentioned, I like Roboto a lot. So let's select Roboto regular. And from by selecting that, we can go to embed, and we have a link here. Copy that link and put it in the head. Our head is here, just above the title. You can paste it. And the Roboto font is now available for your website. That is all you have to do to bring in fonts. If you didn't catch that, I'll repeat. Uh, Go to Google Fonts. From Google Fonts, select any of the fonts that you like. I have selected Roboto. You can select any this font that you want. From the Roboto page, you can see the buttons on the side which says select this style, select this style. So whichever you are comfortable with. I have gone for regular, which is 400 in size. So I selected that, and another menu popped up which has review and embed on it. So I selected embed, and I selected this, copied it, and I pasted in the head. Now you have to take care that you are putting it in the head. It should go to the head. If you put it inside the body tag, then it will not work. Because like I previously mentioned, whatever needs to be visible to the user is put in the body tag. Whatever is to be imported or stuff like that, the script, the JavaScript portion, the fonts, the style sheet portion, and a few metadata, uh, stuff like that is put in head, the head tag. So we have given the link here. Now we have CSS rules to specify families. We will copy that as well. And what we'll do is beneath the title, Also, this should also be inside the head tag. Beneath the title, we will give style tag. And inside the style tag, we will give body, open curly brace, CSS rule that we copied, we will paste it here, and then we will close the curly brace. So now you can see that I have given body. What is body? Body is an HTML tag. We have a HTML tag as body. So what happens is whatever you give in body, the entire body is affected by uh, opening here and closing over here. The entire body tag is affected by whatever rules that you give here. Okay. So that is how that works. Now we have given Roboto as the uh, font family. So font family is the property and Roboto, comma sans serif is the value. So you can see that Roboto is a sans serif. Serif is used for formal text and sans serif is used for informal text. Most of the website that you are going to create is going to be informal text. So if you save that, you can see that instantly the logo has changed. Previously, if you comment this out, previously you can see that this is, I think it is Times New Roman. It is the default font and it is a serif font. You can tell that because if you look at the L, you can see a bit of protrusions here. But if you uncomment this, now there is no protrusions because it is turned into Roboto, which is a sans serif font. So this affects the entire body. If you had given div, then it will only affect what is inside div. Every div that is, not just single div, every div that there is, it will be affected. Now you may ask that why don't we just give div because effectively everything is inside the div. No, because you don't put everything inside div always. You can see that footer here is not inside div. So it is outside of a div tag. So what happens is if you give just div, anything inside the footer will not work. Let's try that as well. This one, file text. Let's say footer has trial text. And right now I have given the property as body. So it is also Roboto. We will change the body to div. When we save it, everything except footer is uh, Roboto. So you can see that this is Roboto, but here in the footer where we gave trial text, it is Times New Roman. So that is what you need to keep in mind. Give it body again, remove the trial text. So that is one of the properties. Now let's try another one. We will just actually let's cut this from here and let's remove the style. Now if you save it, the bullet points have come again. What we will do is we will put a UL, open and close brace, and inside we will paste what we copied. List style type is equal to colon none. And we do that, it has the same effect. So we know that the style tag is working. What next should we do? Let's try it with a class. Uh, let's see. We have this text that is coming under H2. So if we put H2 here, it might very well work. We put H2 tag here and give a property, any property, it will work. But what happens is wherever else you have used H2, that part is also affected. And if you want to control that part, what you do is in the H2, you will give an attribute class and we will give a class name. anything can do. Let's say size control. Let's say size control. That is the class name. So what we'll do is instead of h2, we'll do uh, size control. So this is a class. A class starts with a dot and then the name, which is size control. Size control. Now we will change the size of the font. Let's say, do you remember what the size was for H2? I think it was about, yeah, 24 pixels the size for H2. So where is it? Yeah, size control. We'll give font size, and in that font size, we'll give something like it was 24 pixels, right? So let's give 20 pixels. You can see that now it has become smaller. So depending on what you give, you can change the font size, and you can change the font weight also. Font weight, title. You can see that the boldness is changed. So these are a few properties. We will be going deeper into what the properties are when we are in the next class. Right now, we'll go with the types of CSS, basics of CSS and SCSS. So that is basically internal CSS and inline CSS. For external CSS, what we have is we give it a link. Like we had a link here now. The fonts, we have a link href is equal to an online site, https://font.google apis. So that's the link for Roboto. What we will do is we need a link for the CSS. We'll put a link. We have rel is equal to style sheet. That shows that this link is for a style sheet and not from an online site. And we'll give it href is equal to what was it? css/main.css. Now the thing that you have to keep in mind is you will even if you are using SCSS, you are going to put css/main.css. Why? Because the HTML page cannot understand SCSS. The point of making SAS file is that you can have a easier time to code. The SAS file is just like a pseudo code. So you will write it and then you will compile it. It will produce a main.css which will work as the basis. So you are supposed to put main.css in the link and not SCS. Even if you are using SAS, you have to put main.css. In here, we can also put type is equal to text bar CSS. It's not really required everywhere, but sometimes some of the web browsers it will be required. Like fewer older websites, web browsers like Safari and Internet Explorer, stuff like that will most probably require you to put type is equal to text bar CSS. So if it does not work without type, then try putting it. Most probably that might be why it is not working. It's not really mandatory for the newer web browsers. So that is external CSS. Now for external CSS to work, let's just remove the style from here. That's all the style, right? Yeah. Okay. Now in main.css, we have given the link CSS bar main.css. Why is that? Because in our file hierarchy, we can see that This is the base page where index.html lies is the base page. And in that there is a folder CSS. That is why in the href we have first CSS. The CSS is this folder. And then there is main.css, which lies inside CSS. So that's our main.css. And in this, we'll put the code that is necessary. We have saved this, right? So you can see that it has gone back to how it was. So we'll give the same things, body. Inside this, we will have font family, which will be Roboto and serif. Let's have a body. We have UL list style type, and we'll put none. Finally, we have what was it? Size control. Size control. And you can see that the color of the font is not changed. Size control is still is blue and not orange. That is because we forgot to put a dot. And size control is not a tag, so it was taken as some other command, which it isn't really. So it will not work. What was the command? Font size and font weight, right? Font size, which we can give as arbitrary words like large, medium, small. But it is better to give it a hard number because then you can control it more. Size is 20 pixel. Font weight is lighter. So you can also give numbers for font weight as well. But the problem occurs that these fonts are like, it is coded to be a certain way. So if even if in the case of size, it is just increasing or decreasing the size. The size is more dynamic, and font weight is not like you can control the stroke of the fonts. So what happens is when you are until a threshold is reached, there will not be any change. That is, let's say for example, lighter is 10 pixel and bold is 20 pixel. So what happens is between these two values, you might try everything, but the font will not change. 10 and 20 in between, you say you give 15, 16 or 14, something like that. But the font weight will either be at 10 or at 20 because it is not, the font is not made dynamic. It will not change according to the value that you give. So it is better to use the words in font weight because the words have arbitrary value. Lighter might be 10 pixel, bold might be 20 pixel, stuff like that. So use words for font weight and use actual pixel values for font size. Let's save this and refresh. So there is some mistake because it didn't change. Why didn't it change? Let's put a backslash here and try. I think I put this wrong. Okay, so I had put the backslash in the wrong way. It was supposed to be a forward slash, not a backslash. So remember that this time. So that's the thing with external CSS. You'll give an external link, and that link using that link, you will take a main.css, and that main.css is applied here. So next, let's talk about SCSS. What is the difference? You can create variables in SCSS. Now, like I mentioned before, the drawback of SCSS is that you have to compile it every time you make a change. Every time you make a change to the code in CSS, it will automatically change over in HTML because HTML is directly reading from CSS. But in the case of SCSS, HTML is not directly reading from CSS. I mean SCSS. HTML is directly reading from CSS, which you have to get by compiling the main.scss file. So what happens is each time you are making a change in the SCSS, you will have to recompile the main.scss. So to help with that, we'll go to the extension and we will download the extension live as compiler. Say it here. Yeah, it came through that. Live SAS compiler. So what this does is that you have an option down here called watch SAS. And when you click that, the compiler works in the background automatically. Whenever you save the main.scss file, it automatically compiles it. So you don't have to worry about compiling it. Let's download that extension. It's pretty lightweight. You can do it pretty fast. So after you do that, you will have an option watch SAS. Click that and you will get a debugger. This is live SAS compile, as you can see. It is watching. Now this is watching for you to save your SAS file. Once you save the SAS file, it will be compiled into two files. One of them is main.css.map and another one is main.css. Now you can see that we didn't do anything, but the CSS file is removed. Why this happens is because we compiled main.scss when we watch SAS. I mean, when we click the watch SAS button. So what happens is it will always, the main.css is always going to be replaced, overwritten whenever you are saving the main.scss. So you only have to worry about main.scss, and the drawback, which is having to compile all the time, is now gone because you're using an automatic compiler. We'll just put it down. Now we'll write the same code. It is the same. The code is basically the same. If you are learning CSS, using SCSS is the same. There is no big difference. The only difference comes that you can use variables. And what is the use of variable is that sometimes if you are sticking to a theme, your website has a theme. Let's just consider that your website has a theme and you are using a color. You halfway through that color is being used again and again and again. So it is in one of the division. It is in like fourth or fifth division, something like that. So when you are actually doing a live website, the number of CSS files is going to be really, really huge. You won't be able to individually check which wherever you have done a wrong color and change it. So if you use variable for that color, you can just put the variable and the variable would be in the top. How a variable is declared is basically you put a dollar and any name. Let's say color blue. We put that and we put let's say blue color. For that RGB inside bracket. Oh, wait, we have an easier method than that. Just type any color, basically white. This FFFFF is white, and you can use that if you hover your mouse over that color in Visual Studio Code, I don't know about other text editors. In Visual Studio Code, you will get a pop-up, and in that pop-up, you can select whatever color you want. So let's say around this blue. So you can now reuse this variable name instead. You can go like background color, and instead of this one, you can give dollar color blue. So what happens is it changes. It uses this variable, and from this variable, it maps this color, and then it uses. If you have multiple occurrence of this, then everywhere where you have given color blue, the color will change. You can just uh, change this color to, let's say, uh, an orange maybe. Now save it, and the color is changed. So that is the use of variables that you can have in CSS. You don't have it in CSS, you have it in SCSS. So that's one. Let's put all the things that we had in the main.css. And again, let me show you. There is body color right now. You will save this main.css, and you can see that it is gone, because whenever you are saving main.scss, a new file is created, or you can say that the existing file is overwritten. Whatever you have in main.css is overwritten by whatever you have in scss, and it will only, so that is the use of main.css.map. It will only put the working CSS syntax into main.css. Something that is not working will not go. So that is why, even though we have a body tag, it is not inside here. That is the use of main.css.map. So let's complete this one right now. Was font family, Roboto, and serif. Then we had, is it? Um, yeah, well, style type, and then we had start size control, size control is font size, let's say 20 pixel, font weight is tighter. Okay, so basically we are back to where we had. Uh, so this is the example that I had for showing the variable. You have the white color as stored as a variable, and you will give color as white. Now, color, you have to keep in mind that when you are putting color, it will change the font color. And if you want to change the background color, you have to specify background hyphen color. Like uh, the size control, if you put color and put it, let's say red, put it red, then you can see that it is the font that changes. If you want to change the background, you have to put background color and then give it red. Why is this coming? Okay, now you can see that the background is what changed. That is the difference between color and background color. You don't have font color, it is just color. That is the point that I was trying to make. Now, this is the example for what you can expect to have for a main.css external file. That is, you can have a lot more. This is just a sample that I made, that it only goes up to 30 lines of code, but it can go up to 1500 and stuff like that. It depends on how complicated you want it to be. Next, we have the ways uh, that you can use in CSS. So we have class name that we have already covered. It selects all elements with the class, that is class underscore name. Hash ID selects all the elements with ID is equal to ID name. I don't think that we have already tried ID, have we? No, we haven't. So you put hash and some name, ID hyphen name, let's say. And basically you do the same thing. Let's give it to, let's say, the form, maybe. No, let's give it to contact. Okay, so we'll give ID and we'll give a contact info as the ID. I am giving it to contact. You will. I think I should basically tell you right now. Okay. So another usefulness of ID and why you should only use ID once is you can use links. If you recall properly, uh, for the link you use A and href. So in the href, what you will do is you will give hash contact. I mean contact ID, was it? Contact info, yeah. Contact info, and you will put the letter here. Okay. The tag closing will be after contact. So what happens is instead of ID name, let's give contact info. What happens is now this will be a link. It will turn blue, like all links are. Now, if you click it, what happens is you scroll down to contact. Sorry, you scroll down to contact. That is the point of using IDs. Now, if you had two IDs, I mean, one ID using twice. If you had something like that, you have given it to contact and you have also given it to about. Then think about when you click the link, where will it go? There will be a confusion, right? Which location it is, the link is supposed to go, there will be a confusion. So this is one of the reasons why you are not supposed to give ID to multiple tags. We have a few doubts. Sorry that I haven't looked into it. The font in the button is not changed. This one. Well, where did we change the this thing? You can see that font size is sans serif, right? It has changed. It is not serif, I believe. Yeah, it is maybe not the same font. But actually, this is a completely different element. It is an input element with the value submit. So you will have to give a class here to change its font. If you specifically want to change it, and if the font doesn't seem to change, you can just put a specifically give it a class, and that class can ask make the change. Next is my background color isn't changing. What was the code that you gave? It is supposed to be background hyphen color. background hyphen color and a valid color ID is supposed to give. I tried the same variable code. Go to slab background color. You have two semicolons. Why do you have two semicolons? It should work. If you have given this code, it should work. Just you know, just in case, check the main.css because placed it. Still, the background color didn't change. Okay, so are you using the live server or are you not using the live server? And did you compile the SCSS? What about the compilation? You have to download the SAS compiler and you have to the new installation you told me. Okay. So just try to refresh the page, refresh the HTML page. And if that doesn't work, do Control and F5 because this is also something that you should keep in mind. Sometimes the changes will not occur because of something that all web browsers do. Uh, have you ever felt that when you go to Facebook really often, what happens is that whenever you are going to Facebook and the next time it loads up faster. So this is a process called caching. What it does is it will take a bit of your RAM temporarily and it will store the values of whatever the values like CSS file, the everything that is supposed to be loaded is already kept inside the cache. So in this case also, because you are using it multiple times in the cache of the web browser, your old page might be slowed so that it can load faster. So what happens is, even if you make a change in this page, it will not show in the web browser. To show it in the web browser, you will have to clear the cache. And to do that, you press Control and F5. That way, whenever it changes, uh, I mean, it will remove the cache as well. So it is still white. What is the color? Let me check that as well. Okay, so in main.css, we'll give color was 00 F F0D. Green. That should work. Yeah, it's working fine. Color blue, body, background color. No, changing the main.css file does not help because each time you are saving your SCSS file, it is going to create overwrite whatever is there inside the main.css. So let's after the class message, give me a private message and I'll solve this problem for you because I think that not everyone has the same problem. So let's move on. And this color. Yeah. So basically, that was it. This is the link. It goes to the contact page. Okay. So that's actually all I have to take for today. But yesterday I thought that the class was up till 4 o'clock, and I was reminded that it was actually up till 4:30. So that's why I had a little bit of confusion. And now we have half an hour left. So what I'll do is I'll teach you how to get your website on Git because probably You can do something like this. You can have a web page on GitHub and it is free hosting. So what you need to do for that is you need to download Git Bash. From Git Bash, you download for Windows. I already have it, so I'm not downloading it. You can download for Windows, and then in the page that uh, contains your website, you open Git Bash here, and this is what opens up. Then you need to go to github.com. One second, please. Okay, so from here, this is what you get from logging into GitHub. It is free, so you can log in, and there is no cost or something like that. It is completely free. You start a project on GitHub, and you are asked to give a repository name. Now you have to remember that whatever you are giving the repository name, it will show up in the URL. So let's give it like -web dev. -web dev is available, so we'll use that, and you can choose whether it is public or private. If it is private, it is only you who can commit. That is, other people cannot make changes to this repository. So for this purpose, public is enough. Then we can initialize this repository with a README. Not really necessary because we are going to create it anyway via code. So now we will create the repository, and we have a lot of commands here. This command is what you require. So if you have downloaded Git Bash, right click. I'll show it how to open it. You will right click over here and take Git Bash here. When you're installing it, you are required to give it permission enough to show up in the right click. So most probably it will be there. And in that, uh, we'll do all the commands that we are asked to do here. So let's just copy this and paste it here. Okay, so it failed to push some refs. Let's try uh, what was the command again? Status. Yeah. Status. You can see that these are the files that you have to. Uh, these files in red is what you have to upload. So give git add dot. Wait until all of them is added. Okay. So what happened is this code is to initialize the folder so that it is ready for you to commit. That is, push it to the Git site, Git website. So the add here is add readme.md. If you open your file here, now you can see that there is a readme.md. This file is important because it keeps track of what is in your folder. This file is used whenever you are pushing it. So that is created. When you give git status, you will see that what are the files that have not been committed to the server, Git server. So those are shown in red, and this is new file, and it is in green because it is already in the Git website. Then it is taking a lot of time. We'll come back to this once it's completed. Let me take another important part. So whenever you are using CSS, sometimes stuff happen so that uh, it is, let me show you an example. So in this, let's give it a class, and we'll give it image amount. And the main.css will put an image uh, class. We'll give size 0 pixel. Now what happens is, and sorry, wait. So what happens now is that it is completely disappeared. And when your CSS file gets really huge, what happens is that you have no idea why this image has disappeared. You probably think that it is because of the HTML file, and you try to find this. What is the error? You will be searching through all the HTML files you have, but you won't be finding any problem because the CSS file you have given width is equal to 0 pixel, and you might not remember it. It might be a typing mistake. You might have gone for 10 pixel or 1000 pixel. You just that you didn't type the one. Just because of that, your image is missing. And to solve that, you just right click on the browser and you go to inspect, and a pop-up comes, a menu comes in which you can use this select element in the page to inspect it. Click this, and you can go through all of them, and you can see that it is highlighting whichever HTML tag it is. So you can probably go to this object X, and just above object X you have image. So when you take this image, you can see that right here the classes is mentioned, and the class is width 0 pixel. You can do this in real time, and you can get the result. So this is 0 pixel. Now you have seen it. You can now give it 100 pixel, 1000 pixel, and it changes in real time. That is the benefit of it. You can also try to check which size is the best for it. 500 pixel. Okay, that is fine. Now you can close this, and you can see the object. I'll repeat how you take it. You right click on the web browser and you go to inspect. And another thing that you have to keep in mind, this is class from part of the is from tomorrow. So anyway, I'll take it the way. So if you click the tag with logo, you can see that there is two colors. What those color mean is given here: margin, border, padding, and the content. This little part is the content. Right above it in the sort of green color is padding. Uh, a bit more yellowish is border, and actually orange. I guess it's orange. Okay, in that color is the margin. So that logo has a margin of 24.440 units, most probably pixels. 0 in border, 0 in padding, and this much in size. So sometimes what happens is it might not be width is equal to 0. Your width might be basically the thing that you want, like 300 was it? Yeah, 300 pixel is width. Then you have a margin right of let's say 1,000 pixels. Give it a insanely high value. So right now it didn't really affect it, but when you use other properties, it will have a really big effect. What happens is that your text is gone. You can see that the margin is highlighted here. Let me show you this. Yeah, the margin is being highlighted and it is insanely huge. So right now we have used BR and we have given the images. We haven't used BR. Okay. Anyway, what happens is that if you have the images side by side, one of the images will show on the screen and the next image might go some other place. It might reach the end of the next page and it might not show up on your web page. And you might be thinking what the problem is, and you might be trying to look it through the HTML page when it is the issue of CSS. So if you inspect like this, you can understand what the issue is really quickly and you can make changes from here instantaneously. But you need to remember that whatever change you make here will not stay, because whenever you refresh it, it will turn back to what it was. For example, let's say, let's remove this and let's say that this is 0 pixel. Now it is gone. What you do is you will put a value for this width. We have given 300 pixel value. Now we have set it. So it is working. Now the next time you refresh, it is going to disappear because it is this value is taken from main.css. So in main.css, it hasn't changed. To change that, you have to change it manually in main.scss. Only then the change will occur. Okay, so our ad has worked. It has completed. Git.add is completed. Now what you do is you can check the status again. Git status. Status. Now you can see that these are supposed to be pushed to the website, and it hasn't been committed. That is why it is still red. We'll give it a commit command, that is commit -m and the message that you want to give. Any message will do. So commit -m and let's say sample message. That should do. So oh dear. So oh, for that I forgot to mention another thing, that you have to give your username for it to work. You have a username here. I don't really remember my username. Let me search for my username. Uh, in the meantime, if you have any doubts, you can ask. I clear my no, that was previous. How did you open the Git software so you could upload the code? Well, when you are installing Git, it asks you to set Git as from by access Git by right clicking. So basically, you will just have to right click, and there will be two options: Git GUI here or Git Bash here. In this case, you will take Git Bash here. And if you don't have that option, what you need to do is, I guess it will be in your search. Uh, Sorry, the search you can go Git Bash. Yeah. So the Git Bash app is there. You can open that, and then you have to search for where your file is. These are all. Oh, there's a whole lot. Yeah. So you have to search it. So the easier way is to right click and take Git Bash here. Then it will automatically come. In this case, it is /e. There is /e. Yeah, that's how you do it. You go give it the command cd/e/web design. Yeah, so when you're using it, remember that giving name to the folder is really important. When you are giving name to folders, make sure that you don't put space, because if you put space in your uh, this thing in your folder name, what happens is that you can't use this command properly. The cd command will be really difficult for you to use. So web design, is it again? Yeah, design experiments. Very nice. Slash and web design. Yeah. Now it has gone to the page that we have to go. So it is basically which drive you are using. So let's say it is E drive. Command E not found. Okay, sorry. CD dash E. That will give you the uh, local drive C, B, or E, whichever you are using. You have to use that. CD/B will give you local disk B. Then you have a command called ls. Using ls, you can see whatever are inside that. So let me go to cd/e, and from E drive, let's see, file explorer. I hope that you can see both of them. Okay. Uh, in work, you can see that there is 3D modeling, answers, certificates, codes, blast, flutter, graphic design. All of those folders are there. And press ls, you can see the same thing here: 3D modeling, answers, certificates, code, Flask, Flutter, graphic design, IMP, machine learning workshop, OS, packages, stuff like that. So that is how you go to this. Now from here, I have it in web design experiments. So you have to do cd space web design experiments. So you can just write the starting alphabet, like you can do just use W and then press tab. If there is no other file with a similar name, with starting with W, then it will immediately come web design experiments. If it doesn't come, that means that you have at least two folders that start with W. In that case, you have to be a bit more specific. You can type web and then press tab and then enter. Then you have to do ls. You can see that in web design experiments, I have vg.svg, I have hyphen web design, I have index.html, I have Orion, I have universal CSS, and I have bid. So it is in hyphen web design. My file is existing in hyphen web design. So I will have to cd to that. Cd hyphen web design, enter. And this time, if you do ls, you can see that it is here. Our file is all here. Let's see, web design, hyphen web design, and this is where you have. And when you enter a folder which has a readme, you can see that there is a bracket with master written over it. So that is when you can understand that you are in the right folder. Okay, so is there any other questions? How to add logo in the tab also? Can you please explain the question? I didn't really understand what you mean. Okay, so I have found my username. What you will do is git, oh sorry, git space config space user dot name, and in quotations you will give your username. So what is your username is, uh, in this part you can see in the website Acnova 10 slash hyphen web dev. So Acnova 10 is my username. So I'll be using Acnova 10. That's my username. That is taken in. Then you have another one. Then you have to configure the email, which is git config user.email, and you have to give the email ID. So this is whatever email ID that you are using. That is whichever email ID is used for your you know GitHub page. So I'll just enter it. I won't be showing my email ID for obvious reasons. You should also take care of that because this is in public domain. Anyone can make changes to it. Okay, so I have given the this thing, the email ID. So this is the command. You have a git config user.email ID, email space, and you give a email ID, whatever your email ID is, at the rate mail.com, whatever mail you're using, maybe Yahoo or something like that. For example, gmail.com. So you use that. And now try git status. And you can see that these are all the stuff that need to be uploaded. Oh, we have a really huge video file here. So let's just make sure to delete that. Otherwise, we'll be sitting here the entire day waiting it to upload, which is not going to happen. And we might get into issues. Uh, let's see. Its status. Okay, now it shows that the video that we had is deleted. Now you have to add it. Git add dot. Everything is added. Uh, Git status. Now it is all green. Now we can commit it. To commit, we have to give the command git commit -m and a message. Oops, yeah, -m and a message. The message will be, let's see, and commit. Let's say and commit and enter. You can see that everything is committed. So the reason why the previous add dot took so much time was because we had a huge around 1 GB worth of video inside our folder. Make sure that you don't put something very heavy in there. Now it is committed. And if you refresh this page, oh, sorry, I forgot about pushing it to the website. So you have these two commands, which is used for uh, pushing whatever you have in your folder. So after you have done all this, let me start from the beginning. First, you will create a uh, GitHub account, and from that you will start a new repository. Inside that repository, you will give this thing, echo hash webdev to readme.md. Then you will git init, which is short for initialize git initialize. So you will initialize the git in the page, in the this thing in here. You will initialize it, and then you will git add readme.md. That will add a readme file here. Then you give git commit. No, before you commit, you have to give the username and the email ID. So the command for that was, there's the command for that. Yeah, git config, uh, git config space user.name space and the username, whatever the username is. In my case, it is Acnova 10. That is shown on the web page. So this thing, this here, the Acnova 10 is my username and -web dev is my repository. So you will give the username there, and then there is user email, which you will put the same command, user email and the email ID, whatever email ID you have used for signing into GitHub. After that, you give git commit, and then you use these two commands. Let's just copy it and we'll paste it here. Okay, so the remote version already exists. That is because we have already given this command previously when we copied this entire command. We already gave this command, so you don't have to repeat it again and again. Once you have done it at least one time, after that you can manage with only using this one command: git push -u origin master. Once you give that command, it will start uploading. Let's wait for it to complete. There are a few. I repeated it now. I think you have caught it when I repeated what you have to do. How to add logo in the tab. What logo are you talking about? Tab icon? Well, you have don't really use fav icons right now. It is usually creating your own uh, icons using some software is much more easier than going for fav icons because it's really messy when you are using fav icons. And when you open YouTube, YouTube logo is on the tab. Yeah, that is actually a logo. It is not fav icon. So for logo, you have to design your logo, and where we have given H1 logo, you can just give uh, image insertion and give it a proper size. By giving it a proper size, you can put it wherever you want. Uh, Means if you look in GitHub tab, the corner, how to add tab. Oh, you mean on the tab? Well, that is quite complicated, and I guess I'll take that if we have time. I haven't really put it in the course right now because usually it's not really important. What's more important is getting your website running. So if we have time, we will also include that. Right now, the pushing has been completed. I think it's this one. Yeah. So branch master set to track remote. Yeah. Basically, it is done. Now you can refresh it and you can see that you have a few code in here. You have CSS, you have IMG, you have -webdev.xd, which was not really required. It was the Adobe XD file. Anyway, it is there, so let it be. There is readme.md and there is action.html and index.html. Now, what you need to do is you have to go to settings. And in settings, if you go scroll down, you have an option for GitHub pages. In the GitHub pages, in source, you have none. Instead of none, select master branch. So that will refresh. And once that is done, you can simply give your username slash whatever your repository name was. So it was hyphen web dev, I guess. So as you can see, this is right now online. If you want, you can try inputting this particular URL, and you can see that even you can access it. It's not just in my computer. So now here is where the importance of naming comes. In the case of GitHub pages, it looks for index.html specifically and uses that as your home page. So if you didn't give index.html, then it might not work. I'll repeat what you have to do in case you didn't get it. First, you get into GitHub, you log in with your user ID, and then you create a repository. Inside that repository, you will have the first time you are doing it, you will have a few commands. Just copy paste those commands, and then you give the code. This video will be available. This session will be recorded, and the video will be available. So you can check what the comment code was for the username and the email ID to be set. So you have to do that, and after that you have to give the master origin master, sorry, -u origin master command, and then you push it. When you push it, it comes to this page. And once it is here, what you do is you go to settings, and in settings, you scroll down to GitHub pages, and in the source section, usually it will be set to none, and that will be disabled GitHub pages. You have to give it master branch. And when you click it, it will automatically refresh, and then you can go your username, that is in my case at Nova 10 dot github .io slash, and then you give whatever your repository name is, that is -web dev. If you have given a capital and small letter like this, then you have to do that exactly. So -web dev, and then press enter, and you will get this page. That is how you do it. So we are 5 minutes over the time. I hope that everyone liked the class. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Abhilash, for today's session. Thank each participant over here. I think, yeah, we'll wind up the session now. Everyone can leave the meet.